Hi everyone, my name is Scott and I'm a runner. Welcome to the Run Scotty Run YouTube channel. In this video, which is part 3 of a series that I started called 8 Marathons in 8 Months, I wanted to go over the first 4 marathons that I did of the 8 marathons. If you haven't watched the previous videos in this series, I will have the link to the playlist down below. You can go and watch parts 1 and 2. Part 1, I talk kind of about why I decided to do this challenge, some of the logistics and planning. Part 2, I talked about my training before and sort of during this whole odyssey, if you will. So anyway, today I wanted to start off and just go through each of the first 4 marathons. I thought I would just, obviously show off my hard-earned bling and talk just about kind of each race, some of the cool things about each race, my memories. I mean, it's been 14 years now since I started this, so hopefully I'll be able to remember something anyway. And then sort of, how I was feeling physically, mentally, how I coped with things. So anyway, let's get right into it. So the first marathon that I did, I do have some notes down here, which I'll just refer to, was on September 15th of 2007. That was the U.S. Air Force Marathon, just outside of Dayton, Ohio. It was actually held, I think, on Wright Field. It's the race started and finished at the U.S. Air Force Museum, which if you're an airplane buff, I would highly recommend it if you're ever in the Dayton, Ohio area. So without further ado, here's the medal for that race. I know for some reason when I record on my phone this way, everything seems backwards. But anyway, it was the 11th annual United States Air Force Marathon that year. Normally they have, I think they still do, they have a theme aircraft that, is highlighted. The year that I did it, it was the C-5 Galaxy, which is the largest, it's the largest airplane in the U.S. Air Force inventory. It's a huge, just a monstrous cargo airplane. It's really a sight to behold when you see it. And then on the back, it was really nice because 2007 was the 60th anniversary of the United States Air Force. So that was really nice. Okay, so anyway, I took 2 days to drive there because I can't remember the total distance, but I want to say it was about 12 hours total maybe. So I drove about halfway, maybe a little over halfway, so that the day I was arriving there for the expo was a little bit shorter. So when I did get to town on the Saturday, the expo was held, I think it was at a community college, in town, not far from the base, but anyway, so that was very well organized. There was no problems whatsoever. Lots of room. Went in there and picked up the bib and the race package, and no problems whatsoever. And then I stayed at a hotel in town. So race morning, there was actually, I can't remember, there was like one particular gate, maybe 2, but I think there was just one gate because we had to sort of enter, well, no, I guess we entered a gate by where the museum was, because that's open to the public. And what they had was a huge, large grass area that was designated for parking, and they had marshals out there. They did an awesome job, marshaling people into place. So there was, as long as you paid attention, there was no confusion whatsoever. And it was really nice because I think my car was parked, I don't know, maybe half a kilometer away from the actual start line. So that was really nice. So, I could go back and get something or just kind of hang out in my car if I wanted to. But anyway, I got there in plenty of time. The start area was super well organized. I don't think it's one of the best races for porta potty to athlete ratio. I don't think I stood in line ever for a porta potty, you know, and I probably visited, as you do, I visited the porta potty maybe 2 or 3 times for, you know, a nervous pee before the race. So the race started. Fortunately, we had a beautiful day. It was cool. Fahrenheit, I think maybe the temperatures were like in the 50s. It was mostly cloudy. The sun peeked out a few times. So that was really nice. I don't remember. There might have been a breeze, but it was nothing that, you know, that took away from the experience. So anyway, you start beside the U.S. Air Force Museum. There's a huge area that I think it was at one time part of the ramp at Wright Field. And they have multiple very large airplanes parked out there all in a line. I think the Freedom Bird, which was the C-141 that brought back John McCain and many of the other POWs in Vietnam, it's actually parked there. So anyway, lots of space. So anyway, when we took off, took off literally, I guess, if it's an Air Force marathon, the start, you went across a very, very flat concrete area, which I think was part of the ramp, and then which joined up with a road. Pardon me. So the whole race essentially was on the base, except for a little section, which I'll talk about later. But anyway, you can see this hill coming, so maybe just a mile. Not even quite a mile, you get to the base of this hill, and it was a long, fairly steep hill. I want to say it was probably, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile long, or at least it seemed that way. So anyway, so that was a bit of a challenge. You know, my heart rate was pretty much spiked at, you know, even though I was trying to keep a slow pace. I should have mentioned, if you haven't watched the other 2 videos yet, I was trying to run a 5-hour pace, and I don't think there was a 5-hour pacer. I was kind of on my own for pacing. So anyway, we got through that first big hill. It was a kind of a rolling course. You know, we ran around the base. All the roads were closed. I don't think there was any conflict with any vehicles at any time on the base. The aid stations were really well manned. The volunteers were just awesome. You know, every once in a while there would be a few people out sort of on the side cheering, but for the most part, you know, you were out there kind of on your own, which you know, which is fine. I was there to run. It would have been nice, I suppose, if there was more crowd support, but it is what it is. So anyway, then I can't remember at what point, but it was fairly far in. We went out a gate, and there's a small town right there just outside that gate. And you know, I guess every day is probably Air Force Appreciation Day at that little town, because you know, I'm sure a lot of money from the base gets spent there. So we ran, I think it was 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles. We sort of ran out and ran back. And that was really cool, because the street that we ran in that little town, it was just packed with people. So, you know, I remember getting a really big boost, and then, you know, back to work, back on the base. And then that hill that I mentioned at the start, we had to run down that hill. So now you know, you've got close to 24 miles in my legs, and you've got to run downhill. And you know, that, as for most people that have run you know, a long distance or any distance, sometimes running downhill when your legs are sore and tired is pretty tough. So I hadn't really paid attention when we started. So as I'm running down, you know, I'm down the hill, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go, and I can see the finish line. I can see the finish line arch. But what you did was you ran across that concrete sort of tarmac ramp, I guess, if you want, and then I thought in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going, because I didn't have any GPS, you know, by this point, I don't know if I kind of really knew where I was mile-wise. And then, like, literally, I think we were like 100 yards from the arch, and then we had to go kind of veer left and go straight. So now we're going away, and there's people finishing going the other way. And then I realized what was happening was they wanted you to go down, so you essentially ran a horseshoe for the last mile and a bit, I guess. So you ran down, turned right, and then you ran down in between all those airplanes that I mentioned that were parked outside the museum, which was actually kind of cool now that I think about it. I mean, was having a bit of a pity party, thinking, why can't I just run across the finish line? But you ran across the finish line in the same direction that you started. And it was really cool. There was more generals out there than you could shake, Air Force generals out there that you could shake a stick at. Every single person had their medal given to them by at least a 1-star general. So that was really cool. So yeah, I finished that one. My goal, as I mentioned, was to try and run 5 hours. I finished that one in 5:02:52. So I was pretty pleased with that one, especially since it was the first one. So I didn't hang around too much. I think I grabbed some water, a banana, maybe a bagel, like that, but they had plenty of those post-race snacks, because I was on my way home. So I wanted to get back to my car, get some dry clothes, put some dry clothes on, and then I was getting in my car and driving back to, I stayed in the same place on the way home as I did on the way there. So anyway, so I was very, I was pleased with my effort. Again, it was a gut check. It was a challenging course. I found it, that one big hill and then lots of rolling hills, and not having, a huge amount of fan support. But anyway, really enjoyed it. Okay, so moving on to the second one. So I think now counting this up, I had 4 weeks between the first and the second. So the second one I ran was the Spirit of Survival Marathon, held in the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, and that was on the 14th of October, and that's just outside Lawton, Oklahoma. So it was only about a 3-hour drive from where I lived in Norman, Oklahoma. So I drove down there on the Saturday morning. The race pickup, there was kind of, I'm trying to remember, I apologize, I can't remember the name of the little village. And I think I was on their website not too long ago, and I think they still have a race there, but it might be a different course. I don't know if it goes into the wildlife refuge anymore. But anyway, there was this little village kind of at the entrance to the park, where you went to pick up your race kit. And it was a very artistic, there was lots of little artists and crafts and things going on there. It was quite a cool little place. So I did that the day before, and then I knew race morning there was the parking was off somewhere. I think 5 or 6 miles actually away from where we started, because at the start in the entrance of the park, where we were going to start, there was just no parking. So I did a little bit of a reconnaissance on where that was going to be, so that on race morning I knew exactly where that was. So that worked out really well. It was, I'm not sure if it was close to a school. Anyway, they use school buses. You parked your car, and then they use school buses to shuttle you to where the start was. So yeah, so here's the bling for that one. Spirit of Survival marathon with a buffalo or bison, depending on what you want to call them, in the middle there, which you see a lot of in the wildlife refuge. So anyway, it was a very small race. I think there was only 68 of us there. So race morning, when we got there, I remember there being, I think it was kind of like almost like a little sports field, or maybe like an events field, close by where the start line was. They had, there was plenty of porta potties for the limited number of people that were there. I think it was a bit more of an early morning start, maybe around 7 or something, because I remember it being just starting to lighten up. So one of the cool things about that at the start line was we actually had a park ranger about 15 minutes before the start. A park ranger that was going to be working in the park that day, he came to the start and briefed us on what to do, because there's in that park at the time there was buffalo, elk, and feral or wild longhorn cattle, and there were some of the buffalo had young calves with them. So he gave us a briefing on what to do. Essentially, avoid them if possible, but if not, especially the cow buffaloes, if they had little ones with them, to not to stay as far away from them as you can, and not to do anything to aggravate them. Also, there were snakes. I'm not sure if any of them were venomous. I don't think I saw a live snake. Unfortunately, I saw a few that were had met their demise, got run over. I did see there was also tarantulas, and I mean there were some tarantulas. Definitely the biggest live tarantula I've ever seen, kind of on the road, once or twice, but they didn't hassle me. So anyway, off we went into the park. It was a paved route the whole way. It was closed. The only vehicle that was around that was driving back and forth was the actual park ranger. He was driving, just kind of keeping an eye on us, I guess. The aid stations were manned by soldiers from nearby Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They had actually taken out water trailers or water trucks that they would actually use in the field, and had those out there. So those were really, really well run, and I was very thankful to all those young soldiers that were out there doing that. And they had, some Gatorade and things like that mixed up as well. It was a beautiful day for a marathon. It was overcast, cool, and there was just a light breeze. And it was actually really, I don't know, I don't want to get too corny here, but it was actually kind of spiritual, because I'm a big Western movie fan, from, all the old classic John Wayne movies, Clint Eastwood movies. And it reminded me of being, on the set of one of those. And with this light breeze, I mean, once the field broke up, probably from, I guess, about mile 4 on, I was running by myself, because the field, there were so few people, the field sort of spread out. So just a lot of gentle rolling hills, and the wind, as the wind was blowing across, you could hear because I don't wear music when I race. I do when I train, but I don't like to when I race. And all you could hear was this, kind of a soft whispering of the breeze through the grass, which was really, really cool. So I did actually, I'm running along, and I did see, you'd see little herds of buffalo everywhere in the fields beside the road. And I did probably around 7 or 8 miles. I saw just off to the right. They were up like on a little bit of a hill, I guess. And there was about half a dozen or so of them there. And there was actually, closest to the road, there was a cow buffalo with her, with a young one. So anyway, I just get kind of big. And she spots me. She probably smelled me as I'm coming along. And, she kind of gives her head a toss and snorts and stomps the ground a little bit. And, when you look at a buffalo, I don't know what technically, but I think over half of their body weight is just, up in the front. They're just a battering ram. And I thought, I kind of quietly whispered to her, like, "It's okay, Mama, I'm not interested in your baby." And anyway, so she, I think she was pleased that she kind of scared me away, and I just kept on going. And then not far actually away from the turnaround, I'm running, and I see this off to the left this time. I see this big longhorn bull. And he's just kind of sauntering along, like he owns the place, which he essentially does. I wasn't going to argue with him. And he actually literally, again, he was sniffing me and snorted at me a couple of times. And he literally just sauntered across the road, maybe 20 feet away from me, and, just kept on going. And I, once again, I thought, I guess the marathon gods are with me. So anyway, that was pretty cool. One of the cool things you did, you also had to be careful where you were stepping, because there was, cow patties and buffalo patties all over the road. And like I said, there was, here and there was dead snakes and dead tarantulas. And I did see a couple of live tarantulas, but I think they were just kind of sitting on the road, you know, because there was probably more heat in the pavement. So anyway, so that was really, you know, although it was small, and again, there was no crowd, and I ran most of it by myself, the environment was just awesome, you know, like I just kind of got lost in the whole thing. I ran that one actually in 5 hours and 33 seconds. And then after the race, I went back to the hotel where I was, they bussed us to our cars, and then I went back to the hotel where I was staying, and I think I had managed to extend my room a little bit. Took a quick shower, and there was a Cracker Barrel restaurant right beside it, so I went in there, and I'm a big breakfast guy. I just love, you know, eggs and sausage and ham and bacon and all, and so I went in there and you know, almost went into a food coma, gobbling down, you know, the fresh biscuits and all that sort of stuff, which might not have been the smartest idea, because then I had to drive 3 hours back to Norman. But you know, I got myself a nice high test strong black coffee, and all was good. And boy, that breakfast at the Cracker Barrel tasted good. Okay, so the next one up, which I think I had about 5 weeks off, was November 18th, 2007, the Route 66 Marathon in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Here's the bling for that. Pretty nice medal. So I had run this marathon, well, actually twice. I ran it one, as I mentioned in one of my my first video. I ran it with Dean Karnassus, the ultra marathon man, when he did his 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days. And then I ran it in 2006, pardon me, when it was an official race, and it was the actual inaugural race. So this was my third time running it. Now, I will say that they did make some pretty significant changes to the race course for 2007. I don't know if it was, they definitely made it more challenging. I don't know if it was because of routing issues, or, you know, with the city or whatever. But anyway, so I drove down there the day before, no problems at the expo, picked up my package, stayed in a hotel where I just left my car in the parking there. I think because of the hotel where I was staying, it was, I want to say it was maybe about a kilometer walk to where the start-finish line was. So I walked down there, and as I mentioned in a previous video, a woman that I worked with in the training squadron where I worked, she was doing her first marathon. So I met with her and her friend, and you know, it was nice to have them there. And then off we went. So I remember there being some more hills, and one fairly long one. I mean, it was in a beautiful area. I think it was maybe in a park, or a beautiful subdivision of some kind, but it was, and I can't remember, it was before the halfway mark. Anyway, I started to have a little bit of a pity party. You know, I thought, I don't know, as you do sometimes, I was cursing the fact that it wasn't the course that I had run twice before and that I had really liked. So I did have a bit of a pity party there, which, you know, mentally affected me probably for about 5 or 6 miles. You know, I was just, you know, kind of upset with the world. So that didn't, you know, that didn't do much for my pacing and my mental strength. But I recovered a little bit, and then I started thinking about, you know, my friend out there, my coworker doing her first marathon. She finished, I think she finished about 45 minutes, maybe almost an hour ahead of me. She was a very fit lady. So, but I was thinking of her, you know, and remembering my first marathon, and that picked up my spirits a little bit. And I just, you know, I think at around mile 15 or 16, I just said, okay, it's time to put your big boy pants on and get this thing done. You know, you signed up for these things. Time to get going. So anyway, so yeah, so I finished that one. It was, you know, I knew it was probably going to be the last one. So I did, in the last couple of miles, I did enjoy, soaked in as much of the experience as I possibly could, and finished that up. And then, like I said, this lady and her friend were, you know, they were kind enough to actually wait around, even though they've been waiting around for probably about an hour by the time I crossed the line. But, you know, fortunately they had space blankets and all that sort of stuff. So we, you know, we had a couple of snacks. Then I walked back to the hotel and got in my car and drove back to Oklahoma City. So again, we had, I was blessed with weather this particular day too. It was an overcast day. It was dry, but it was cool. So that, you know, helped because, you know, when I was kind of in that little bit of a dark patch, you know, whining and complaining to myself, if it had been hot or whatever, that would have probably made it even tougher. But anyway, I wasn't unhappy. I finished that one in 5 hours and 15 minutes and 35 seconds. So off pace a little bit, but you know, nothing terrible. And you know, as I was driving home, I sort of thought, okay, you have 5 more of these to do. So you know, you're going to have to figure out some way not to be having these pity parties just because the course is not what you expected. Tulsa, as I mentioned, was one of the ones that I'd done before. So when the course had changed a little bit, I allowed that to mentally get to me. I should have just, you know, put that in the back. But anyway, enough excuses. So that was marathon number 3. And then I had, I think, another five weeks off, if I'm doing the math, or 4 weeks off, I guess. And I ran the last marathon of 2007, which was on December 12th. That was the Dallas White Rock Marathon. There's the medal there, sponsored by a company called Wellstone. Yeah, so anyway, I drove down there. Dallas is only from Oklahoma, or from Norman, where I was living, I think it was just over a 3-hour drive. So I drove down to Dallas the day before. The expo, I think, was at a big convention center, so it was like lots of space, no problem at all. Got in there, got my number, and I'd actually, when I was signing up for the race, there were, I think there was at least one, maybe almost 2 host hotels, but they also had set up, because the race started downtown at very close to one of the arenas. It might have been the arena at the time where maybe the Dallas Stars hockey team and the Dallas Mavericks basketball team played. Anyway, it was right downtown, so there was no, you know, they didn't want people parking down there. So what they had set up was at, I think, about a half a dozen hotels. They sent buses around, you know, nice, comfy cruiser buses, and they had a schedule there. So I stayed at one of the hotels where I could be picked up the morning of the race, and then they also ran shuttle service back to the hotel after the race. So that worked out really well. So it got downtown, and I should mention that I had, at the time, I had a GPS watch. I sometimes wore it, sometimes didn't, because it was the Garmin, I think 35 at the time. The thing was just massive. I can't remember how much it weighed, but it was huge. And I found sometimes running long distances, it really was a pain. And for some reason, even though I knew I was going to be able to run with a 5-hour pacer, I chose to wear the thing. Anyway. But it wouldn't, you know, we're downtown and there's all kinds of buildings, office buildings and things around, and it never synced up. So, you know, lesson learned, you know, especially if I was going to run with a pacer. That was, yeah. So anyway, got in with the 5-hour pacer. This guy was just awesome. He was kind of like a professional pacer. I think maybe Power Bar sponsored like a pacing team for a lot of big marathons around the United States. And he was actually from that area. He was from the Dallas area. So it was really cool because he kind of gave us, he nailed the pace right on as we were clicking off the miles. And he also gave us like a bit of a history lesson. So, I chit-chatted with a couple of people. I think in the group with him, there was maybe, it varied, but there was probably 15 or 20 people. I chit-chatted a little bit. I just kind of put my head down after, my little pity party at the Route 66 Marathon in Tulsa. I just kind of wanted to put my head down and, just focus on how my body was doing and just stay out of my own head and follow along with him. I do remember we ran out around, I think it's called White Rock Lake, which is quite, I remember it being quite an affluent neighborhood. And it was a couple of times I remember we were running along and there's this lady, she's standing at the end of her driveway in front of this bloody mansion that, just, I don't know, it was a huge, huge house. And she's standing out at the end of her driveway in her bejeweled slippers with this long ankle-length mink coat, drinking a cup of coffee, cheering us on. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool that somebody with, that would walk out here in a fur coat and cheer people on as they ran by. But anyway, so that worked out really, really well. And then, so I glued myself to that pacer. And then I guess about the 24-mile mark, I was kind of feeling my oats, and maybe, I don't know, I wanted a little retribution after my pity party in Tulsa a month before. So I decided, to kind of put the gas pedal down a little bit in that last 2 miles, and I pushed the pace. But I was actually feeling pretty good, and luckily I didn't push it. I didn't push it so that I actually absolutely killed myself. But I finished up a little faster, and that ended up being my by a minute, but it ended up being my fastest of all the marathons. So I finished that one in 4:57:09, the Dallas White Rock Marathon. So that was another great experience. And again, beautiful weather, overcast, cool, a bit of a breeze, but just for me anyway, perfect marathoning weather. So got lucky that way. So and I stayed overnight in Dallas and then drove back to Oklahoma City the next day. But I didn't, there wasn't sort of, there was an area, I think inside the arena that I mentioned earlier, there was an area where you could, go get some snacks and things like that. I think there was a table sort of just by the finish line. I think I just grabbed a bottle of water, and then I looked over and there was one of the shuttle buses, I had my medal and everything, and there was one of the shuttle buses that was going back to the hotel. So I thought, I'm just gonna get on the bus and go home and have back to the hotel and have a hot shower. And I think I might have treated myself to a pizza or something like that. So, okay, so so this video has been a bit long, but I hope that you found some of those stories interesting. That's the first 4 of the 8 marathons, and those were September through to December 2007. So I thank you very much for taking the time to watch. If you feel you'd like to follow along for the rest of this series or any of my other running videos, please consider subscribing. It'd be much appreciated, and also press the like button down below. Remember that no matter how old you are, how big you are, your shape, your size, how far you run or how fast you run, if you run, you are a runner. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video, which will be the final 4 marathons that I ran of the series of 8. And again, thanks for taking the time to watch. Best of luck in your running adventures, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Take care.